Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen, friends and people of the internet. Thank you for checking out this episode of the 15-Minute BJ podcast. Today, I am joined by a very special guest for his 69th appearance on this show.
His debut appearance.
Drew Carey. No, Brian Gower from Playing Without a Pilot. Also, from The Tone Jerks, a fellow podcaster.
Yes. So, I think the last time I was on, the idea of starting a podcast wasn't even there. And so now I'm one of you. I'm a podcast.
One of us.
One of us.
One of us.
Let me in the group. Yeah, it's a great group. You know, we have parties all the time.
It's a great transition when you feel like making no money and putting in 110%.
You know what? You say that the podcast is a lot more successful than my band that I've been in for fucking 13 years. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, your podcast has taken off quite a bit. I remember, the last time you were here was about a year ago, to the date. Mm-hmm. But we somewhat talked about it. You were telling me like you were interested in starting one and you were going to try and maybe start doing one of your own and blah, blah, blah. And then within like 3 months, far surpassed anything I've ever done.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say that. It's definitely like... You were one of the first guests on the show. It's like when I started, I kind of didn't know what I was going to do. I know I wanted it to be... so the Tone Jerks podcast is really...
let's get that out there. What is the Tone Jerks? That's the name of this thing?
Yeah, the Tone Jerks podcast is with my bass player, Kyle. He's kind of my co-host. And at first it started like it was going to be like an interview show. And then I started like throwing everything that I like from podcasts together. I'm like, you know what? I don't like only interview shows. I like topical shows where they discussionals and they talk about shit. And I'm like, let's do that too. Let's do like the what's new and let's play music too. Let's do and then we started throwing it all together and saw what sticks. And we got the feedback and people like it. They like everything that we do and they're like, just keep on doing it. And I'm like, okay, so you like the interviews? Yeah. So you like the topics? Yeah, no, they're good too. I'm like, you like it when we don't talk about gear at all and we talk about like hot dogs and beer and anime and shit like that? Yeah, it's cool.
That's the beauty of podcasting. It's such a wide variety of people who listen. So even if not every episode is hitting the same 50 people, you're gonna hit somebody because that's just the wide variety. A lot of people don't have cable anymore, so it's just podcasts.
So it's definitely. It's definitely about guitar and gear and like recording and stuff like that, but it's also like we gauge it more towards like how is this useful for a band that plays live, the band that tours, a band that's like DIY tour. Like we tour up in the coast and stuff like that. We have no manager, we have no record label, nobody's booking our shows, nobody's loading our stuff but us. And so I'm like, I want the gear to work for us. And you play live and you're like pounding the pavement and working your ass off. You want your gear to sound good, look good.
Nope,
and
I just want it to work.
Perform fucking well. You want it to. You don't want it to like. I'm second guessing. Like you're a big advocate for tsunami cables. Like these fuckers aren't gonna break, and if they do, they're gonna take care of my ass. It's like that. We talk about gear like that. I'm like, it's like okay, your Boss and MXR pedals might not be the sexiest type of like boutique gear, but they're important and they work. The utility, like a TU2. Boom, you're done. Get one of those. I bought mine like 12 years ago. Still works today.
Spilled beer on it, still works.
Yeah, and we talk about amps and like almost like we just like wax poetic about guitar and amps and tones and recordings, and sometimes that shit never really actually matters to the show, and sometimes it really does, and like maybe even to the side of performing and writing and stuff like that. So our podcast, I want to say like we're in a broad spectrum. People have called us like we're not a guitar podcast, we're a musician lifestyle podcast.
Yeah, that's how I would gauge it. I would say you guys are more of just like a music podcast, but not so much the emphasis on music. It's more like music lifestyle.
Yeah, we do a lot of shit talking too. So we always do all the shit talking is us.
Well, that's part of podcasting, I think, is there's always like that certain element of like humor and comedy behind all of these, because that's basically what they started from, was like, comedians and people who like
comedy
talking.
Podcasts and shit like that.
So I think all those podcasts and all upcoming podcasts are always going to have that like Joe Rogan effect, where it's still like somewhat zany.
Yeah. But it's been really cool. I mean, playing in the band has always been fun. And I made the joke that it's like the podcast. It's like, you're just seeing results a little bit quicker, maybe because like podcasts are now a bigger medium than they've ever been. Because I'd say in the past 10 years, like people were like, what the hell's a podcast?
Yeah.
It's this shit that's on your phone for free. And like people are like, oh, okay, I'm never into it or whatever. And then like people like Joe Rogan. maybe, and then Mark Maron, stuff like that are really taking off. And our podcast is nothing like them. People
10 times bigger, baby.
Yeah. No. And so, it's...
You just got to put experience at the end of it. Tone Jerks experience.
Yeah. It's fun. To me, I'm like, I really a big advocate for podcasts, and I love listening to them because it's like the DIY punk thing of like music nowadays. It's like you don't have to fucking listen to the radio or MTV if they even play music anymore. I don't know. I don't own a TV. I don't listen to my radio. I listen to, stuff on Spotify and Bandcamp. Like, you can find your own music that you want to listen to, and you direct your own entertainment. And that's how, I'm not a big talk radio fan. I don't listen to it, but podcasts, I listen to the shit out of them. I find the ones that I like, and I can, weed through it, because you give them like, okay, maybe a couple episodes, and maybe you heard great things, so you give them a shot, whatever, and then you're now a subscriber, and you can listen
That was
to them.
my whole big draw to it too, was the fact that it's like basically the Wild West right now of entertainment, where
you're creating your own path for other people to follow, and if they don't, they don't. If they do, they do. And I'm like, that's people's like, it's so easy and it's so awesome because like it's 2018. We have entertainment like computers in our fucking pockets. We can communicate with other people across the world. Like we have really good friends of people like across the whole country because of our podcast and because we listen to their podcasts and stuff like that. We met people who live in like Brighton, UK, and it's like I face-to-face conversations with them, and now we're friends listening to their podcasts and yada yada. And it's like, this is really cool to me. I'm like, I would have never thought I would be doing this type of stuff 10 years ago.
Bringing the world together without ever leaving our bedrooms.
Yeah, it's cool. It kind of brings the fact, it's like, yes, face-to-face interactions are cool and they are more important, but it's like now you're meeting important people that like the same shit that you're into. And some people might be in a bubble, or like they might be like, okay, I'm in a crappy little town in bumfuck nowhere, but I'm still connecting with people that I really like, and we're like, to me, I think that's really cool. And it's also whatever people want to shit on social media and shit on the technology that's around today, whatever. I mean, you go shit on something else. And I'm like, I don't care about it. But to me, it's something really cool because you're able to like, interact with people. I'm like, I don't care what interactions you have with humans. It just, as long as you're doing it, it's good. And you're, it brings you that level of, I don't know, connection with somebody else. I'm like, I'm going on a soapbox for no reason.
Well, it's not really like a soapbox. It's just what podcasts are. It's just people expressing their views and their opinions, which is like when you said it was a punk rock thing. Like it's
like
very much a punk rock thing because that's what punk rock used to be. It was just people expressing their frustrations, their ideas, whatever. It wasn't about like spiky hair and clothespins through your ears. It was more
making
about
that connection with
doing
people
it on your own, doing it your way, and not letting somebody else tell you what to do, basically. And there's a lot of ways where the rest of the world is trying to tell people how to do things and what to do and what to say. And I've always been kind of like keeping an eye on all that shit because I feel like podcasts are going to be the next thing that get that attention, like people are already judging everything that any like major artist puts out, and they're judging everything that any NBA or, professional player is doing. They're just, everything is under such a microscope, and you can't say certain things and you can't do certain things, but it feels like podcasts are like the last real like safe space where you can do whatever the fuck you want because nobody's gonna bust into my room right now and like come in and tell us like, you can't say fuck on the radio.
And like if people don't like what you're saying, they won't listen. Or for us, we have like, we try and like force like, not force is a terrible word. We have a Facebook group for the Tone Jerks, and people like, it's like very like reaction. They'll let you know what they like and don't like about your episode. Like we have like, it's a guitar group, so we have like different types of like country players. We have like metal dudes. Like this guy is like like a lot of like black metal and shit like that, and he's like listening to the podcast. And it's like we had like made an off remark about like 8-string guitars and 7-string guitars, and he's all like, Look here, you morons. And we're like, oh no, Jason.
Just because you can't play 6 strings.
Jason fucking lit us up. I'm sorry. And it's like in a friendly way.
Yeah.
And so it's like you can kind of hear that reaction of like either comments like on maybe on your videos or comments on your Instagram picture or whatever. And it's like, you can kind of, it's kind of cool because it's like, we've been at it for almost a year now, and we can kind of see the growth of it from not like listener numbers coming in or maybe like more supporters on their Patreon or more people in our group or Instagram followers. Followers on Instagram is like, we hope that people who follow us will eventually check out the show.
Yeah, isn't that weird? Like, you got 1 million followers on Instagram, but none of them do anything.
Yeah, and so it's like, and then some people just follow the Instagram because they like the pictures or like it's like pictures of guitars and pedals and like dumb memes,
Anime characters.
Yeah, always got to slide those in. There's people join the group because of the it's like the Venn diagram of people who like guitar and like anime, and then they also listen to podcasts. They're like,
well, yeah, you can't.
And then they're like,
you can't look at podcasting, which is such like a on the outskirts kind of medium, and attack everybody in the middle and expect the outskirt people to support you. Like, no, you gotta just live where you live in that realm of like the happy medium of like,
I don't know.
Somebody from the middle of the fucking board is gonna come and check us out eventually, but like your main supporters are probably gonna be the people like you who are on the outside. You know,
they like everything. I mean, we do like random off-topic rants where Kyle, he's a big video game guy. He works on cars and shit like that. He'll make he'll bring up topics like that, and I'm like, oh, and people like, I'm like, well, I have nothing to riff with you on this, but like people will come back and be like, oh man, they like, talk about video games with him. I'm like, I don't know what Skyrim is, but I know it's a game. So it's like they go off.
That's one of them. They're computer games, right?
Computer games. And so like, it's to me, it's fun. It's like we're just talking, shooting the shit, and you're kind of like, at a point you're wondering like, who the hell's gonna listen to this? And then you get it's like we'll release an episode and then it's like, oh shit, well, over hundreds of people are actually listening to it. It's like shit.
I haven't had that problem yet, but one day.
But it's I mean, to me, really, I think you need to put your podcast on like Podbean or something.
Yeah, I probably should put it where podcasts go and not just YouTube.
Yeah,
but
because you're gonna get lost with all like the fucking compilation videos and like top 10s. You're gonna get buried in that type of shit.
Yeah, I mean, when I started this thing, I didn't really know what I was doing or where to put anything or what to do about it. It was more of an experiment to see if I could use my Pro Tools regularly.
Yeah, no, it's
so the fact that like I've kept it going this long and not given up on it means something to me.
Yeah.
Like I know that eventually maybe I will take this in a more serious note, but.
Yeah, so far, I mean, I really dig it and I tune in. But my biggest thing is like, oh man, if he was on like, if I could just listen to it on an RSS feed, I'm like, it would make it so much easier.
Yeah, I'm all about the ease of access, apparently.
Yeah. But no, I mean that's I mean you didn't ask for it, but those are my 2 cents for you.
No,
like
this
people,
is
more people would tune in for sure.
Constantly on my mind. Yeah, you got to put it where the people are listening, and
Yeah.
Nobody's really going to YouTube and going unheard of podcast.
Yeah. I'm gonna search for the 15-minute BJ.
That's what I figured would happen. I was like, people are gonna be out there being creepy and just like these are not music fans or fans of my shit at all. They're just gonna be looking for BJs.
Somebody's listening to 30 episodes. Like, when are we gonna get to it?
Yeah, when does the knob slobbing start?
I just want to hear sound effects.
Just 15 minutes of.
Oh, Jesus.
That's what they're expecting, but this is what they got.
Yeah, they get another dickhead in here.
I'm just trying to do the ultimate Houdini on the internet right now.
Yeah. Gotcha, bitch.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like at this point, if I don't start doing shit like that, it's just going to turn into like a weird manifesto type deal where like every week it's just 15 minutes of me slipping into madness by myself. Like,
well, you've done some of the ones where you've done it by yourself. That is a big deal. Like to me, I'm like, the least I've ever done is just Kyle and I. We have a lot of episodes where it's like, oh, scheduling guests is always a bitch. Like they can't always like, I'm trying to get you on our show. It's like we can't get you like, oh, I can't not free any evenings. I'm like, well, fuck, dude, we have jobs.
Yeah, sorry, I'm a working musician.
We're hashtag working muso. I'm a hashtag working worko. So and then. So I'm like, oh, shit. So we do a lot of episodes where it's just Kyle and I. And at first, it was really difficult. Like, because Kyle, he was like, didn't really want to do it at first. And I was kind of just like pulling his teeth. I'm like, well, I know you're free because we're not practicing.
Just don't make me do this alone.
Like, come on. And then he started like, once he got like more people like feedback of like, oh, I like it. I'm tuning in. And he's like the type of guy, I love him to death, but he's like easy like to sway because it's like, oh, yeah, look.
Yeah, once you get positive feedback, you're like, I'll do anything.
Yeah, he's like, oh, look, we're getting more followers on Instagram.
I watched him run down, what was that, Midway Drive in his underwear?
Yeah.
Just because I told him it would be funny.
It was.
It was pretty funny.
It's pretty damn good. So it's like, it's cool because he's definitely like really into it and like talking to different like bands and like our whole thing is like we're trying to just like because people are like, oh, who do you interview? We interview bands, we interview session musicians, we like recording engineers, studio owners, and like we just did one with Copper Sound pedals, so like this pedal company out of like the Boston area, and it's like, oh, we're doing like remote Skype calls and stuff like that. We're getting more and more into it, but like, oh shit, this is kind of cool. And so we are getting more people involved in it, and actually like it's like, oh, I like your show, can I be on it? And so like, oh shit, yeah. So like even in San Diego, we're getting more San Diego musicians who are into it. Like, oh, I heard your podcast. I'm like, they haven't heard, like, they're like, oh, you bring up the podcast before the band.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that's cool. That's exactly what we're trying to do, I guess. And then we've had people hit us up that are friends of ours. Like, I'm not going to name the band, but like they hit us up, like we know them. We've known them for years.
But they didn't know it was you guys.
No, because they did not do their research. And be like, it's a cartoon picture of us is the main like header of the website or the Instagram. It's like,
yeah,
hey man, you should check our.
But it's like literally the same font as Play Without a Pilot.
Kinda.
Same voices.
Like I've used that logo too before. It's all about recycling, man.
All of that.
Upcycling, whatever. So like he hit us up, and then it's like we're a show that we were playing with them like in a couple weeks. Like, hey man, I really want to be on your show. You guys should come check us out at so and so. We're playing a benefit concert. I'm like,
oh yeah, I'll come check you out.
And then so I was like, okay, I'm gonna take the piss out of him real quick. I'm like, yeah, dude, totally want to have you on. Like, I would love to check you guys out. I'll definitely be there. He's like, awesome, psych. I'm psyched for it. It's gonna be cool. It's like, by the way, you know that we are Brian and Kyle from Playing Without a Pilot. And he's like, ... He's like, never responded back.
I would have just been like, I would have been like, yeah, man, I'll come check you out at that show. But man, actually, I'm kind of busy because I'm playing a show that night too, and like give him the same exact address, just mind fuck him. Like, who are these guys?
So I think it's kind of cool. It's like we're getting cold emails from friends. So friends who are like they've heard of the podcast, but I don't try and blow it up on my personal all that much. I think I do it in my bio on Instagram. It's like, oh, I'm in Playing Without a Pilot and the Tone Jerks, yada yada, and then I don't like try and post like every day and inundate people on my personal. Like I'll do pictures of my dog or a picture of like a beer. That's my personal Instagram, but I'm like mainly on Playing Without a Pilot or the Tone Jerk. So most people know who Playing Without a Pilot is, that I'm in Playing Without a Pilot, but they're hearing the Tone Jerks and like, oh, I hear this podcast, I see the podcast, and like, oh, I want to be on it now. And so they get like a cold email like you would to a venue.
Yeah. But this brings up something in my mind. What would you do when, because I'm pretty sure it will, come to a point where the podcast is blowing up and maybe it doesn't allow you to have so much time for the band, is because this started as like just kind of a thing for you to do and like on the side, same thing with me, a way to promote my shit. Like, maybe if the podcast gets big, people will listen to my band. Do you ever think about that? Like, what happens if the podcast gets humongous and I still try to push the band, but people are like, nah, just keep doing the podcast? Like, is that going to drive you crazy eventually?
No. I mean, I think it's because like it's Kyle and I in both. We are Playing Without a Pilot. We are now also the Tone Jerks. And Kyle made it like a pretty profound thing, saying it right away. He's like, well, we'll never like the band is always first, because it's like without the band, we don't have an edge as a podcast. Because there's a lot of, I know you
I
probably
don't think that's very true so much, because you guys will still be musicians and you'll still have a ton of experience from being in a band.
But some of our perspective, if you don't listen to a lot of guitar podcasts, a lot of them aren't actually gigging. They're not playing shows.
Yeah, they're just music nerds.
Yeah, which is cool. I mean, they're playing, either at church or whatever. Maybe they play out once like every 2 years or something like that. But for us, I'm like, okay, we're doing it once a month. We're playing the slag shows. We're playing like whatever. We're playing the good shows. We're playing we on the radio sometimes. Whatever we're doing, it's like, okay, we're making some moves, but whatever. It's like we're an onside band. Whatever. I'm not gonna like bank everything that we're gonna make it big. Whatever. We still love what we do, but I'm like, that's kind of our edge, is like, I have these pedals and this pedal board set up, and like, how is this going to work live? And sometimes you Kyle bought pedals, and we like some people gave us pedals and stuff like that. Kyle tried it in his bass rig, and like as soon as we got live situation, he stepped on the pedal, he was lost in the mix. He's like, oh no, that pedal is great at home, not in the show. So he's like that's our edge, kind of. And it's also like, that's not our only edge. Like we still have our banter back and forth and like our chemistry, as you would call it. But I don't think, and because it's like, I don't know, him and I, music, we want to make it a bigger part of our life than like we can. I can't like feasibly, and it's always just like, well, you can do anything you want. I'm like, I'm not gonna quit my job to do music. It's just not gonna be something I ever do. So like the band is never, I guess, too much of a burden for anything. It's like practice once a week, play shows once a month. Mileage may vary in between each. I'm also playing bass for Brian, our drummer's band, just in case. So I'm like, okay, I'll maybe practice twice a week, maybe play 2 shows a month. That's about it. And it's, it's good. It's like, it's a good rhythm to have. If I had to start a new band, I think I would have to work way harder because like a little bit of an asshole. Like we have a name, like Playing Without a Pilot. People know that name, so I can kind of like rely on that a little bit. I'm like, oh, I can have like a little bit of push.
That name of, oh, you guys still play?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, but people know it.
It's been 40 years.
Yeah, it's been 80 years. Yeah, no, it's been a while. But and that's kind of one thing. But if I wasn't a new band, like we have like our friends like The Rough, they're playing a lot to get their name out. They've been doing it for a year, but they've been like hitting it hard and playing and playing and playing. And
Yes,
now
they
they
have.
have a bigger name, bigger following. I'm like, shit, that's what I would have to do. I would have to play all the time to get like my new band if I wanted to start one out. But I don't want to start a new band. We just keep on Playing Without a Pilot until Kyle and I.
And who knows? Maybe it comes to a
quit.
point where the podcast instead of the band can replace your job. And
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Your podcast becomes your income or whatever, and allows more free time for more creative endeavors like the band and stuff. So
Yeah, that would be cool.
I don't think it's like the end of the road if your podcast gets super big. I was just wondering if that was like something that's ever worried you or like been on your mind where it's like, well, what if it comes to the point where like people demand the podcast to the point where like I'm churning it out 4 times a week. I ain't got time for shit. My kids are all starving and fucking the podcast is just burning away.
Yeah, I think it's different too. It's like we have friends who shout out 60 Cycle Home. They're local boys. Their podcast is really big, and then they have a YouTube channel that's even bigger, like 25,000 subscribers, 30,000, whatever they're doing. They're growing all the time, but they kind of use their brand of 60 Cycle to do pedal demos and videos, and that's how they push to YouTube. One of the guys is like he was a videographer and he's a graphic designer and stuff like that, so he was able to use his skills that he had at school and stuff that he does on the side to be like, you know what, I'm gonna put this into my podcast and use that, our branding as a little bit of that. And so now he supplements his income from demos, supplements his income from like instructional videos or whatever type things on using his podcast as a brand. But the other guy is still just really mainly only doing the podcast. Like they still like audio he's like, oh, I'll talk like once a week, or we do two episodes at a time, release them once a week. So if I wanted to do that with the brand, like of the Tone Jerks, like demos and stuff like that, and do videos, like that would take up a lot more time, but that could also be more lucrative. I don't ever want to do that. I hate videos. I hate making videos. I hate recording videos. I hate editing videos.
You're such a cute boy.
No, we did a couple for NAMM, and I was like, I'm fucking done with this. I'm like, Kyle, if you want to do stuff for the Tone Jerks, you have to learn how to do it. You have to buy a camera. You have to edit. And he's like, no, we stick to audio. Because he was like, I want to do videos. Because like a part of the thing is like, eventually you could get paid for demos. You could get paid in free stuff, kind of, is part of the, idea. If you ever watch like stuff with like Pete Thorne or like Fluff or like somebody doing demos, they're usually getting paid to do that. I mean, they're almost always getting paid to do demos.
Yeah, they're like, here's a free thing that I want you to talk about, and a couple $100.
Yeah, and plus money depending on their rates and whatever. And more people, the bigger channels, you have to pay more, yada yada. But and then Kyle's like, oh man, that could be kind of cool, because we thought of that idea. I was like, oh man, this could be cool. Until like I edited a video, I'm like, nope, we are not doing this. And I'm like, I don't care about video. It's never a thing for me. And I know YouTube's like a growing thing and growing sensation. Could move on to whatever, Instagram videos or IGTV, whatever the thing is. But I'm like, I still don't even want to be a part of it. I'm always an audio guy. That's why another thing with the podcast, it was so easy for me, because I'm like, I know how to do Pro Tools. I'm a bit of a whiz kid when it comes to it. I know what I'm doing at least, and I could get a good sound. But obviously like 2 mics, so it's like how fucking...
Yeah, how difficult is it?
It's not too bad. But you'd be surprised. There's some shitty sounding podcasts out there.
Listen to the first few episodes of this podcast.
And you're like, oh, that's what a noise gate does?
Oh. Yeah, basically, I mean,
and then
just learning from this podcast has helped me a lot. Having Robin Whitehouse on, he was the one that showed me all the plugins that I use these days. So it's like, oh, now I sound like a real person.
Yeah,
cool.
Even, we did one with Brian Rash, our drummer, and I'm like, and then him telling me just like different like tricks on Pro Tools. We did some recording some new songs with him, and him and I both like engineered it. And I'm like, and he was like, oh, just to clip tracks together or cut down waveforms and stuff like that. He's like, what are you doing? like, no, you can just click this button right here, and it's so much quicker. You don't have to push like 18 buttons to do this one task. I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna save so much more time.
Pro Tools and Photoshop are on the surface very, very confusing and hard, but once you learn all the little tricks,
it's always about the tricks. I'm always got to learn all the tricks. That's the biggest thing for me. But yeah, what were we talking about? Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think the podcast is ever going to take away from anything because we release an episode a week is what we do. And then we release an extra episode for our Patreon people who pay us. And that's about it. So it's not going to, I don't think it'd be ever going to be a burden or a bear unless we start doing videos or whatever, or like live streaming or whatever.
And that's the beauty of it is you're in control of that. There's nobody telling you like, you got to do videos or I'm not going to listen to you anymore.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing too, it's like, somebody mentioned it before. It's like, well, how like some other podcasts like 60 Cycle or Guitar Nerds, they like are making empires kind of thing. They have like 50 or like 5,000 people in their group. They have 50,000 subscribers. They have like 60,000 Instagram followers and stuff like that because they do videos, because they do this. I'm like, we don't have to do that.
It's a mountain of work.
And to me, I'm like, we have like 70 people in our Facebook group because I don't push it. It's not that big a deal. We have maybe a little bit more on followers on Instagram because I'm like, Kyle and I, we're Instagram people. We're not Facebook people. I'm like, so, I mean, you're on it, but it's like you're not pushing it as much. Like, I'd much rather.
I just connect the Facebook to the Instagram.
Yeah. And so, it's just stuff like that. So I'm like, we have other people who they have like our podcast friends, like they have like 1,000 people in their Facebook group. They have 100 followers on Instagram. So I'm like, you can't really gauge somebody by like Guitar Nerd style where they're in the 60,000s of the tens of thousands of like followers and people in their groups and shit like that. So I don't know, social media is a completely different animal and shit like that. So
yeah, and coming at it for like a podcast or something that you're putting on the internet,
a
little more emphasis is probably needed on that social media stuff.
Yeah.
But in the music world, I'm just like, I used to put so much energy and effort into that shit, and now it's just like, dude, I can get 1,000 fucking likes on a picture and not one of those people are gonna show up for the fucking flyer that they just liked,
or even
or know who I am because they're all fucking like real estate companies that follow me or like some weird bullshit
or like they're not gonna like buy anything or whatever. It's that, I don't know. It's social media is a completely different thing. What I was going off of about that was like, if you wanted to make your thing more of an empire by taking over like a social media of YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, stuff like that, it's like you'll get a bigger name, and those podcasts they put way more work into it than we do. And, that has to be like some of them, like they rely a little bit more on their income as far as demos, as far as like, they get stuff for free. I'm like, okay, this is yours now. Maybe they'll sell it and get some money, or, like they have a, more lucrative Patreon or whatever and stuff like that. They push that a little bit more, and selling shirts is part of their thing too. I'm like, I don't want to do that. I just like the audio.
Yeah.
People, that's what you get is you listen to the podcast, and if you want it, more on our Patreon, just, a couple bucks, like $2, and you can get an extra episode, and people like it, and, whatever. And I don't think I would ever do anything more.
Yeah. Not to shit on what you're doing, but for me, the Patreon thing and all that, like Twitch streaming, like the video game streaming where people are constantly like begging for donations and shit.
Yeah.
I guess maybe just because like I'm in that acoustic music, like, constantly playing bar gigs and like seeing people doing this in the real world, it feels dirty to me to be like, hey, this didn't cost me anything, but if you want to pay for it, like it's like begging for tips basically.
Yeah, like, it's kind of like
I've seen those kind of musicians out there that are just like constantly like harping their tip jar, like I have a tip jar.
Yeah,
like,
if you want
I may point at it once and be like, it's next to my CDs or something, but like it feels so dirty to me to be like.
Yeah, that's why for us, I'm like, we don't like to get anything if we're not going to give something. So it's like, for me, like...
You get the extra episode.
You get the extra episode. Like, it takes me time to edit it. Sometimes it's like 40 minutes of like a 40-minute clip show because like we're just drunk rambling and just talking about shit. And people like it. They're like, oh, it fades into like, 4 minutes of us talking. Fades into the next 8 minutes, yada, yada. So I'm still doing quote-unquote work, but it's still fun. And I'm like, people like it, and... Some other, people have, Patreons where you did get jack shit. I'm like, I'm not going to pay you $2 to $5 for nothing. I mean, and that's where I'm like, I want something if I'm gonna pay you money.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. At least you're giving people something.
But, give me a Coke or something. Like I don't care what it is.
I
It's
feel like in today's day and age, like
a lot of people just
a lot of people are just expecting you to just be like, well, you're doing the bare minimum. Let me give you all my money. Like,
So and then that's for us. I'm like, Kyle and I've talked about it. It's like we really like put everything we have into like the main episode each week, but we also put everything into the second episode too. And so people are like, yeah, we'll listen to some podcasts and they'll have like their shitty, like their next their Patreon episode. I'm like, you didn't do anything. It was 20 minutes of you doing nothing. And so I'm like, how do you expect people to pay for that? So I guess in your saying of like, oh, asking for tips. I'm like, the thing is, and people are like, well, what if I don't want to listen to Patreon? I'm like, then you don't have to.
Then don't. Yeah.
Some people are like, oh, I'm a bit, tight, for a little while. Like,
There's still a free show.
And I'm like, dude, it's still free. The fact that you're even listening to us is a huge deal. Like, if people leave comments on our iTunes reviews or follow us on Instagram and comment on things, I'm like, dude, that's a huge deal. Anyways, like you're doing everything that you need to do.
Yeah.
You have to do nothing else. And people are like, oh, I don't make them feel bad because they can't do it. I'm like, I don't support every podcast that I listen to. It's sometimes I can't. I'm like, I wish I was loaded, but I'm not.
Just the listen is enough of a support because
that one play
you're upping their number, and that
or
does help.
Or if somebody wants to download every episode like 75 times, that's cool too.
Yeah.
we got rookie numbers. We got to get those up.
Gotta get them up. Gotta get them up.
Those rookie numbers, kid. But
rookie numbers. Wait till you see the rookie numbers coming off of this podcast.
But yeah, no, I mean, I guess we pull the curtain a little bit, but yeah. Still playing in a band. Still, like I said, we're recording. We have like an album that we dropped earlier in the year. It's doing well. It's good. Got a lot of good feedback on that. But we know how long it takes us to record, so we've already started the next EP.
Yeah, it's basically once the first one is done, you're already on the next one.
Yeah, and it's really cool. This one is a little bit more organic because we wrote it with Brian, pretty much in a studio. And we're like, oh, we had these ideas, like when people say, we wrote a song together. We like literally wrote these songs together. I had a riff. I recorded on acoustic, sent it like over my iPhone. Kyle saw it. I was like, oh, okay. Because I had a riff, Kyle wrote lyrics to it. He didn't even know what the chords were. He was just singing along to my recorded memo iPhone message. And then
2009 style, baby.
And then he's like, okay, cool. And then we got to the studio, and then Brian actually structured it. On the drums, he's like, okay, I'm gonna pull this back and we're gonna do these type of like rhythms that I have for that part. And then he came up with like, oh, I think we should come up with the bridge here, and like it's not just like, oh, a drummer just like do ka. And like he actually like helped like structure the songs and lyrically. I'm like this is like a legit song. Like, and we wrote it together. I'm like, I've never done that in like all my years of playing music. I've never actually wrote a song with two other people, like the drummer included. Drummer's always like the worst one because they're like, you better have this shit ready for me. I'm the star here. I'm like, you replaced the last 10 guys? Okay, cool. You're the star. Okay, gotcha. What was your name? Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah. Sticks McGee.
Yeah. And then we have others that we were like, okay, I was like, we're playing, and that's like, it's like Kyle's like, maybe like he's tuning his bass or whatever, and I just have a riff that I'm playing, and then Kyle's like, oh, what's that? And he just sees what key it is. I'm like, oh, he starts, like, I'm playing a riff. I don't even know what chords he's doing now, but he's like playing these chords, and I'm just like, I've like maybe learned my pentatonics, and so I'm doing a couple riffs and like blues licks or whatever that I'm like, I learned on Justin Guitar on YouTube or whatever the day before, and I'm like, oh, I'm just trying them out and seeing what sticks. And I'm like, okay, cool. And then Brian's playing along with him, and then Kyle's like, oh, I have these lyrics that have just been in, like, I have like a whole like note thing on my iPod or my iPhone or whatever, and then we play it, and I'm like, wait, so we just wrote a song in half an hour? And so I'm like, wait, this is kind of cool. It's very organic. So I think this next little EP that we're doing is just because we wrote songs. There's no reason. We don't have to do anything. We don't trying to make a full length. We're not doing anything. They're just songs to like, we like them. We play them live.
Might as well record them.
Yeah, hopefully people like it. We'll probably just make it the easiest thing that we can do because we recorded drums ourselves. I'm going to try and do bass guitar myself and just mix it with Jeff at double time. And not to be like save all the money, but like try not to make it a huge to do and just put an EP out and probably just make it a digital only type thing. Like fuck it, save the pressing, save whatever. Maybe I'll just do the artwork for it. So
go talk to my buddy at Clarity Recordings.
Yeah, I mean I rather do it myself, but yeah.
No, that's the thing is like there's a lot of stuff that you can do yourself. For me personally, I would never want to record a full band. And he's doing such a good job recording us as a full band thing right now.
Yeah.
But I've noticed that, like, I've been doing this, like, solo thing for so long. that it's like,
You want to get a
when
band.
your name is on it, people are like constantly expecting you to be like a proficient leader, where like it was never like that with this. Like, I write these songs on my own, I do whatever,
Yeah.
but it's usually a very simple version of the song that I've written because I'm just going to go play it acoustically anyway,
Yeah.
right? So I don't think about what the bass should sound like or the drums should sound like until I'm literally recording that shit, whether with people or without people. But for this thing that we've been doing,
It's definitely, you're collaborating more, right?
they're like looking to me to be like, well, what do you think of that? Do you like that? Do you like that? I'm like,
the
yeah, I like
opposite.
it.
Yeah,
You've been
yeah.
playing the same thing for like 3 years. It's cool. It's good. But like, I'm not going to sit there and be like, this is what you should play. This is how it should go. This is this. It's like, as long as you're in tune and on time, like,
Yeah.
that's all I give a fuck about.
Just get those ones and twos, you'll be all right.
I don't know if I'm like a bad solo musician because of this, but like, I don't
no,
want that like
I think
Dave Matthews Band thing where I'm like fucking like everybody knows
you're the leader.
it's that guy, or like
Your way.
there's certain dudes that like write, record, do everything themselves, and then they come out and say like, I did it all myself, but then they still have the band behind them, where it's like, I want the band to feel like they could do whatever they want. When I go and record something on my own, don't be upset if it's not the same exact bass line that you're playing or the same drums that you would have had in mind. Whatever. When it's live, do whatever the fuck you want. If we're recording, do whatever the fuck you want. But like, I don't know, like, I'm having a little bit of trouble like navigating those waters as like, am I a band leader because my name is the band, or am I just like, my name is the band because I got tired of playing in other people's bands?
Yeah. Do you how's the recording process for you? Are you like really comfortable like in the studio session, like setting, or like are you like still like maybe?
It depends on the studio.
Is it because it's like maybe things are under more of a microscope now as opposed to like live? You kind of like let different overtones go by. Maybe like, you know, oh, the bass part actually really didn't match up with the kick here, but now you're like listening to it like singled out tracks. You're like, shit. Maybe that's not the best thing, or you kind of just like let it ride a little bit more, or you.
It's definitely loosey-goosey when you play it live, and then when you get in the studio, like you're saying, like you notice more things, like how they click or whatever, or like I feel like my strum patterns sometimes change because I'm actually listening to the drums and like a click, and like going with it. Whereas like in a live performance, like I'm mostly strumming along to whatever I'm singing, so like my right hand is just doing whatever the fuck it wants.
Yeah, just keep it in time and.
So sometimes you get to that point where it's like, oh, that sounds really weird when I'm doing it the correct way, or I guess I've been doing it wrong all these years. I try not to think about it that much. I just try to like get it in and then let the recording be its own thing. Because again, I'm gonna play it 1,000 more times live, and it will have morphed into something where I'm like, well, I'd like to re-record that.
It's gonna be different too. So like for me, I'm like, I don't do a lot of like downstroke, like, you know, palm mute things, because I'm like, to me, I'm like, yeah, it'll just like live, but I'll do it on a recording because I'm like live. I'm like, oh, it's just gonna jumble things up. I'd rather let it breathe. So I mean, to me, like live and studio are completely different animals.
Yeah, and like they're always trying to talk about like stacking tones or doing things like that. I'm like, you don't understand. Like, I do this 1,000 nights a year, where it's literally just be loud enough that the guy in the back of the bar can hear you.
Yeah. And
there's no worry about like sound or like tone. Like that's all shit you work out for me in the studio. Like if something sounds like a broken fucking train track, then like I'll be like, yeah, let's maybe like readdress that. Let's see what's wrong here. But like live, I don't even use pedals. Like I use literally just the overdrive on Ivan's Vox amp, and that's like my tone. Like I don't think about those things, which maybe sure is something that would get me more attention if I put more into that, but like the world that I live in is mostly drunk idiots who would rather be listening to fucking like hip hop or fucking DJs anyway. So it's just more of a thing when I get their attention. Yeah. That I've already got their attention. They're not like, well, this is the best thing I've ever heard. It's more like, oh, he said something funny. I'm gonna go look at him over there. Like,
yeah. I feel like, I mean, definitely, and I think I mentioned it before, it's like the studio environment can be like a little stressful, but I mean, I've been to Sean's place before, and I think back like when he was kind of first starting out, or like, you know, maybe like a couple of years ago or whatever, I did some bass tracks over there, and an old band I was in recorded there. It's cool. It's definitely like a pretty chilled environment, and I like what he's got going on there, but he knows that I know also a lot of recording stuff on my own, so it would be me just like driving over there, spending the gas to bring all my shit to record stuff that I could just do at my house. And so he's like, yeah. And then I'd have to pay him too. Yeah. And I'm like, nah, dude, I'd rather save the time, save the gas, save the money, and then just put the notch under my belt. So That's why I'm like, people are like, oh, you should go to Clarity. I'm like, well, I'd rather just do it myself. So that's be like a thing too of like, somebody with like, if you knew how to like, change your tire or whatever, or like do your own oil. Like I don't know how to do it, so I go fucking Jiffy Lube and have somebody else do it for me. But if people be like, yeah, no, dude, it's like it costs way more and you can just do it yourself. And I'm like, okay, cool.
Sometimes it's nice though to be able to blame somebody else. Like I do my own oil and shit, but like I fucked up and like sprayed oil all inside my car and been like, fuck, it would have been nice to be like, yeah, it was Jiffy Lube's fault. But
or you'd be like, I'd much rather have paid the $40 to have somebody else do it.
And also sometimes like they know things like, obviously not like in a Jiffy Lube situation, but like in a recording situation, there are things that like they may know that you didn't, that make things 10 times faster or easier or whatever. And sometimes it's easier just not to have to hit the buttons yourself or to have a fresh pair of ears to be like, you were off the click or whatever.
That is a really, like, it's invaluable, that point. I think
for me, it's more of like,
I think
a producer hat than an engineer hat at this point, because I can easily go in and hit record, whatever, do my own shit. But from a producer standpoint, like when I work with Sean or I work with Robin or I work with somebody else and their stuff, it's their stuff. They have much nicer equipment and they know how to use it. I have the bare minimum and I know how to use that. And I know how to make that work for what I do when I want it to. But I also feel like I'm a little more apt to getting it done when somebody else is involved, and I feel like it's on their time also. Like, I've sat there and told myself a million times that I'm going to record like little EPs and put them out every month, or do like little live in my own bedroom things together with myself, but I never fucking do it because it's like, no,
that's 100% too, because I'm at a point, I'm like, I'm off work for the next like week and a half or so, and my whole goal is to finish the guitar tracks for that EP. We'll see if that gets done. But that's me. I'm like,
it's just more work on your own plate.
Like, I'll do it. But then again, too, I'm like, if I did work with somebody else, like, because like the days that we did drums at Brian's, we actually did drums at Brian's house. We used a lot of his mics, and then we used both his interface and then slaved mine into it, and we had like 12 mic, on drums, and it was like a very like DIY, like, but pro approach at it. And like him and I both know about, like, he knows really good miking techniques with drums, and I'm like, I know how to like kind of EQ some things, and so does he. So like us all together, I'm like, cool. And then we played live to him with something that was like, it made it like, to me, I keep using the word organic, because it's like we're all jamming live to him, and then it's also like to a click. So it's like we can, if like we aren't feeling the groove and we're off the click, then like go back to it. But it's like Brian's still able to keep it together, and we follow him, but he's following the click. To me, I'm like, I don't know, it's kind of cool, and it's something I'm like, I don't know. I look at these recording projects as like projects, and they're fun. And the last one we did, I recorded all the guitars and bass and vocals and everything at my house. Like in a bedroom, in a bedroom. I didn't go to a studio. I didn't go to anything else. I didn't want to go, not necessarily not pay anybody, but I wanted to do it on my own. So to me, it was like, I just said, I want to put the notch on my, on my belt. Yeah. Because I'm like, I did it. And, and when people hear it, I love, because one of the biggest things is like, we've gotten like,
who recorded this? Where'd you go?
No, the snide comments of like, oh yeah, playing without a pilot. They're just really, they like to pay big money to go to a studio and overproduced stuff. I'm like, well, actually, and I'm like, well, I did that in my bedroom, and my dog was sleeping on the bed while I was recording, and like it was, super, and it's cool to hear that people say like, oh, your recording sounds like a big studio. And I'm like, that's what I want. I want to do it the DIY way, the punk rock like attitude that we had back in the day of like booking your own shows, getting your own friends to come out, making friends with other bands, like doing like your own tours, doing your own recordings. I'm like, I'm 30 years old, but I still have that mentality. I'm like, I'm going to do it myself. You know what? And, ask for help along the way. And, Jeff Forrest, Roland Ware, like they've helped me out big time on how to do this stuff. Like, now Brian, and even back in the day, like Sean Tolley he was giving me pointers. Like he would look at some of my waveforms that I had. He's like, ooh, this will be okay, but you're at the point where you're like in the danger zone.
On the brink. There.
Yeah. And he's like, don't do this next time. Try this. And he showed me some like better looking waveforms. I'm like, oh, cool. Thanks. He never had to give me pointers. but he's like, we're friends, and it's like, it's like, I want to help steer you.
Yeah, here's the knowledge I've acquired.
Yeah. Like it took me like 10 seconds to or less to show you and help you along the way. So that's kind of my thing. It's like just building up a better community of friends, and like we all have the same ideas and same lifestyle that we want to like create music and create something that we're proud of. I don't know where we came up with that, but it's like we went in a big circle.
That's what we do.
Kind of a podcast.
We go on tangents.
That's kind of the
it's
goal.
the beauty of a podcast. And the 15-minute BJ has turned into a 45-minute BJ.
Yeah,
so
I told you I'm a gift to gab here.
It's all right. This is what I love when we do the guest episodes. Like I used to have Brian, my bass player Brian, come through and do a guest appearance with me, and he was like semi a co-host for a while. But like, I don't know. I'd rather if I'm gonna have somebody else talking at me, I'd rather it be something that moves along a conversation and not just like fills out a spot. And no disrespect to Brian or anything like that, but it was just like, it was basically like me doing the same thing I was doing by myself, just bouncing it off him. And it's great to hear two voices, but if it's gonna be a 15-minute BJ, it'll be me by myself. But like, it doesn't have to be 15 minutes. If I'm gonna have a guest, and I'm sure I'll have Brian back on, and we'll talk more about some more shit.
Yeah, I gotta get you on our show.
I just I like the interview thing, and I like talking to you guys and getting these little recorded conversations, because eventually, like I said, most of these are just me listening to it myself anyway. So it's just like, I'm gonna go home and listen to this when I'm like 50 years old and be like, oh yeah, I used to be cool and funny and have friends. It's pretty much what I see coming from all of this. I've learned a lot doing it, and it's cool to have the information saved somewhere. Like, I've learned from a lot of my friends who play better guitar than I do, or who know more about certain things than I do. I just pick their brain on it. I save it. I put it on YouTube for other people if they want to hear it and listen to it. But for me, the 15-minute BJ is more of just like saving recorded conversations, because I have a terrible memory and I can't.
It's something like kind of like almost like a modern kind of diary-ish type thing.
Yeah, like a blog without the effort.
Yeah. Like less punctuation and grammar you have to worry about.
Exactly. And I can drink beer and nobody knows because it's off the mic.
Yeah. This is one of the first podcasts I've done in a while sober. So, you get a real treat or shitty.
To be honest, I've never done this podcast on any sort of level, which is weird because usually like I'm the guy that's like party, party, party. But like this is the one thing that keeps me straight.
Yeah. I got to derive this thing. Like, I can't drink and drive a podcast.
Well, as you and anybody who may know me that's listening to this out there can tell, I'm a little bit better talking when I'm sober than when anything else is in my system, because I get really rude really fast.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
And I still have a little bit of an edge when I'm sober, but like it gets a lot worse when I'm doing anything else. We were talking about for the 21st episode, which was 10 episodes ago, to do like a drunk podcast, because my buddy Eric and I have been friends for like 26 years or some shit. And when our friendship turned 21, the big thing was like, oh, we've been friends for 21 years. Our friendship can drink. Let's get it drunk.
Yeah.
And I thought that would be really fun to do at the podcast. But then I thought like that would also go nowhere. And again, it's not like I have like multitudes of people listening to this that are going to be disappointed by a shitty episode. But like me, myself, because I'm the biggest audience of this podcast, I don't want to go back and listen to myself just ramble drunkenly, like hate speech and stupid things that I'm eventually going to regret saying on the internet.
Had a couple of those on the Tone Jerks before. Done one where Kyle was drunk and he was just he was like he's been a Scotch thing. Like Scotch is his big deal now.
Oh,
so
yeah,
he's like drinking like a couple of fingers of Scotch before I even got there. And then he started drinking more, and then he's just like slurring and talking. I'm like, what did you even say?
Yeah, like we went off on enough tangents today.
Yeah, we're both
if you threw any beer in the mix, it would have been like just the ADD podcast.
I'm like, I'm a coffee and a couple waters in, so
woo
party.
Gonna pee it all out. All right, well, I think we should get to the point where we're wrapping this thing up. So what is coming? What is coming next? Give us a little bit of a sneak peek of what's coming up with the podcast. What's coming up with the band. What's coming up with yourself? Any big sales at Crate and Barrel coming up?
Yeah, locally at Crate and Barrel. No, locally for Playing Without a Pilot, we have a show. I think it's yet to be confirmed, but I'll plug it anyways. If we don't play the show, you should go to it anyways. From touring bands at Soda Bar on Sunday, September 29th. It'll probably be one of our last shows for a while. Our drummer, he's having a baby girl, so he's taking a little bit of a break, and so we're gonna take a break. And then probably give us more time to finish that recording, and maybe that'll come out sometime in spring. I'll say it now. Hopefully it comes out, and so we get it fucking.
I'll hold you accountable now. We have it
Yeah.
on recording.
Yeah, we're just gonna make it a quick, like, maybe a Bandcamp, Spotify thing, just digital only. Keep it simple, 4 songs, whatever. And then podcasts. If you tune in, we're on. The podcast, the Tone Jerks podcast, is on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, all that shit. If you search the Tone Jerks podcast, you'll find it. Stitcher, all that stuff that I never even use. But check it out. We have tonejerks.com. We're on, I know we slagged it off a little bit, but we do have a Patreon. If you guys do like what you hear, you guys can help support the show and get an extra episode every week for $2 and up. And we do, for people who pay a little bit more, we don't have Tone Jerks merch, but we do give them Playing Without a Pilot merch. It's a good way to get rid of some Playing Without a Pilot shirts, because people seem to like the band because they hear us talking about it. So that's pretty much it. I mean, we're both Playing Without a Pilot and the Tone Jerks. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. So if we're just at Playing Without a Pilot, at the Tone Jerks. You'll find us. I'm Kyle, and I man both of them. So there's an easy way to get a hold of us. And that's
Send
about it.
all your hate mail there.
Yeah. All the hate mail to InstaBeach.
Yeah, I handle it very well.
Yeah, you're just going to go.
I just called somebody out on Instagram the other day because I get these comments all the time where it's like, hey, I love your content. Go check out my page and maybe give me a follow.
Yeah.
And I'm the kind of person that's like, you know what? I'm going to delete this eventually, but for about a week, I'm going to let this comment ride, and I'm going to put an even snarkier comment underneath it just to see if you are a real person.
Well, and
I got one back today that was like, they said something similar like that, where it's like, yeah, go check out my page. And I was like, why? You don't even follow me. You don't know what I post. You don't know anything about me.
Yeah.
And then they're like, the next day they followed me. They're like, well, I follow you now.
We've gotten that a couple times for like the band. And it's like, I think we had our CD release or something coming up, and we had our friends, Hardly Human. They're like, oh, pop punk band, check us out. Like on one of our flyers or whatever. And it's like, yo, dude, I'm sure your band's fucking great, but can we like just be excited for Playing Without a Pilot releasing their album, because they're actually really good. It's like, maybe you should check them out, if anybody's going to try and check out your band. And then they're like, oh, I just listened to the album, it's it's the song on whatever, it's really good. And then they started following us because like our friends were just like being dicks.
Yeah, I'm just calling people out nowadays. It's like, 'cause I get those all the time, and I know like certain ones are just delete immediately, where it's like, this is a fucking spam page, I don't even follow you, fuck you.
Yeah.
But like, sometimes if I could tell if it's like a real estate person or someone who's really trying to like push their shit on me. Other musicians do it all the time, where they just randomly like go through and like a few of your photos and put a like random little like emoji comment.
Yeah.
I'll do the same thing to them. I will go to their page and I will put an emoji, the same emoji, on every post that they've got. And then I just hope that in the back of their mind they're like, God, this is fucking annoying. Oh, I should
probably not do this. Yeah. We've had
or like
ones.
the guys that like you just follow them, or like you add them and they send you an instant like message like, oh, thank you for following me. Go check me out here. I'm like, bro, do you know anything that I do? No, I'm not gonna go check your shit out. Like,
yeah. Like, yeah, people like call shit out. It's like we'll post dumb stuff on our Instagram too. Like did one where he like posted like an anime meme or whatever, and then this realtor company like, I really like this photo.
This is great content. Keep it up. Like,
and then like my friends are like, did you see the picture that they posted? And like, how did you even find this? This is like a podcast about guitars. Like, what the fuck is your problem? Like, and then people like blowing up, and they never responded. Yeah. But I kept it out there because more people just like, kept on like hounding them, and they never responded back because it's a bot running their page. So need to get one of those bots.
Totally. Tired of being the bot, man. That's the next step. I just want to make the music and let everything else be handled.
Yeah. You just got to sweat your assets. Just push a button and let somebody else do it.
Exactly. All right. Well, you heard it here, folks. Keep sweating the assets. This is the end of the 15-minute BJ. We're going to play a song from the latest Playing Without a Pilot release, Just Another Unsung Tragedy. You want to pick a song, or should I just randomly hit it off? I was going to
get to your DJ. It's a random song.
All right. Well, I don't have any of the track titles saved, so it's going to be track number 9, and I'm going to play that one.
There you go.
Well, thank you guys for listening. Check out the next one. Also, check out the Tone Jerks podcast. Check out Playing Without a Pilot. Check out Brian Gower, and check out Anime. Have a good weekend.
Your existence as long as you live. I'm lost without you by my side. This ambition in my heart won't stop leaking like a sieve. You're bound to bleed yourself dry. I'll kill myself just to feel